Okay, so in this video, we are going to clean up something from last time. I'm going to show you how to copy text, that isometric text we made last time. You're going to end up dimensioning your other object, and then we're going to bring them into paper space, and we're going to mess with some scales, which can be a little tricky. So our first move is, we did our text in our last one. We have the same object. One of the things that you can get good at in AutoCAD is finding your own little shortcuts, ways to make things easier. So rather than going through and putting a single line text in here every single time, maybe it would be easier if we click on all three pieces of text, then hit CP for copy, and then we'll use this corner here as a base point, and then we'll move it down, and we'll copy it into that corner. Okay, and then we want to move these onto our object. So I'm going to click here, drag this in somewhere around. Let me turn that snap off. Get it into a place that's pretty good. Then I'm going to go to this view, and I'm going to drag this F down where it should be. Then I'm going to grab this T, grab it down where it should be. Now, the size of this text isn't too bad, but maybe we could do a little bit better. Maybe we can make it a little bit smaller so it doesn't look quite so overwhelming. So let's try this. Let's click on the letter. Right-click, go to Properties. In the bar here, you'll see the height is 0.25. Let's change it to 3/16. It'll be a little bit smaller. Hopefully it looks a little bit better, and it does. I like the way that changed. So let's kick that up, and let's center that again. Put that maybe right there. So we'll do the same thing for the other two. Hit Escape. Click. Click. Select them both. Change the height. Let's see if it'll let us. 3/16. It did. Then maybe we move them both at the same time. We'll like the way it moves. Nah, not really. But at least we got the F in the right spot. Click here. Drag this to where it should be. And that's pretty good. So you can continue to play with that. If you haven't yet, you should go through and dimension the half size object that we did. If you remember, when we originally sketched this, we sketched this object half size. And then we drew it half size. So as we're coming back and we're looking, it looks like that went pretty well, right? We got 1.5 inches here. Half of that is 0.75. 0.75, half of that, 0.38. Something to that effect. You can also notice, I'm just peeking at this now, noticing that I did not change the isometric. So if I go to dim, TEDIT, right? It looks like I forgot to turn all these, which is fine. It's not the end of the world. So specify, hit enter. We got to, one more time. Click our object, and then we need our angle. So click angle, and go from here to here. So you're going to need to do that for all 5 angles. I missed that spot there. I'll go back and do that later. You don't need to watch me. You know how to do that at this point. So once you've got your object perfect, which again mine isn't, but it will be soon, we can go through here to our tabs. Now we should have, if we haven't already, we should have taken this tab, right, this perfect one that we made, and copied it. So if we go to Move or Copy, Create a Copy, so there's my ISO 1, say OK, it'll make a copy. And so if you notice, I've got, there it made ISO 113 is the 13th copy of that. So we need 13 copies because we're going to have 13 drawings. So here's ISO 1, it's the one I've already named. And I'm going to zoom around here and find my object. So if you notice, one of the problems we're running into at the moment is we don't see our scale, which isn't the end of the world. We're going to talk, or I don't see my dimensions, but we'll talk more about how to fix that in a little bit. Also looks like it's possible I changed, that F looks small. If I come back here, did I accidentally change the size of that F? Let's just take a peek. Properties. And nope, still says 2.25, that's good. Okay, just looks small. So, isometric. And we're going to choose a scale, right? So I'm in my viewport right now. If you remember last time we were here, we made a viewport. We set this field, right, to use that scale. So now I'm double-clicked inside of there, and I'm going to choose 1:1. Does full size fit? Now, all of a sudden, my dimensions pop up, and I'll kind of try to explain a little bit why they did and didn't. Although, to be honest with you, AutoCAD has this thing called annotative scale, which can be very helpful and very confusing at the same time, but I'll do my best to explain my way through it. So 1:1 looks nice, but we're kind of small. I would much rather see us fill as much of the white space as possible. So let's try to go to 2:1. 2:1, we lose our dimensions, which isn't great, and we also lose. It doesn't really fit. Like, it won't fit once our dimensions on. So here's the best I can tell you: when you zoom in and you don't have the dimensions that you know you made, your annotative dimensions. If you click on this button right here, it says Add Scales to Annotative Objects. So I'm going to go back, click 1:1. Then it's going to make sure that button is still on, and I'm going to click 2:1, And now it's going to do what it's supposed to do. The dimensions stay on, and they scale down the way they're supposed to. See how they got smaller? They stayed at the right size. So I think we chose 3/16 or whatever we chose for our dimension size. But if I go back to 1:1, they stay that same size. They scale down with the object, and then they scale back up. So they're always reading the same thing. You know, if you think about it, this is what, like about twice the width of my cursor. So going back to 2:1, right, should still be, it's about twice the height of my cursor. So that's what we're trying to accomplish. But our problem at the moment is that we don't have a scale that works for us. And we can't do this. We can't just scroll like where we find something we like, because that's 0.125. If you notice, well, sometimes you lose your, but it won't set our custom down here because it just calls it custom. We want this to reflect as well. So if I hit REA right now, it stays as custom, and we don't want that. So what we're going to do is we're going to make a custom scale. So double click inside of my window. I'm going to come down here to custom. And what I want to do is I want to add one to this list. So we have 1:1, we have 1:1, we have 2:1. We're going to make 1.5 to 1. So let's click add. How do we want it to appear? Let's try to make ours appear just like theirs does. 1:1, and there's 2:1. 2 is the bigger number. So let's say 1.5:1. And then it says paper units, just like this was. If we were looking at 2:1, it would say 2 paper units to 1 drawing unit. Let's make this 1.5 drawing units, paper units to 1 drawing unit. Say OK. Also, I think it makes sense to list this in a way so that these are reading. Like, so right now you are 1:1, and this would make it bigger. This would make it smaller, smaller, smaller. So it kind of fits in a weird spot. So let's scroll this down in between, or just before 2:1, right? So if we move down, now you see we are full size, small, 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 small. Now these groupings get bigger, right? 1.5, 2:1, 4:1, 8:1, 10:1. So it makes it easier to kind of like see it and find it, so you don't have to think too much. So leave it at 1.5 to 1. Say OK. And then we're going to change it to our custom. I'm going to turn this off just in case it does do it because I want to prove the point. But if I go to 1.5 to 1, click, I lose my dimensions again, which again, I don't really want to have happen. Let's double click in here. We'll scroll out. Now if I go to 1.5 to 1. So let's try that one more time. Go to 1:1, where we know they're going to come on. Then go to 1.5 to 1. Now they pop on. Don't ask me why it does it. I don't really understand the process. I kind of get it. Sort of figured it out so that we can make it work. But to be able to explain it in depth, I can tell you this from having used AutoCAD for a long time. It's complicated. It's always kind of been like this. Dimensions have always been hard in AutoCAD. Even the things that we have to do with the dim edit and the dim T edit, and none of the other programs are like this. It's because AutoCAD makes things so customizable. But when things are this customizable, it creates lots of snafus. And so this is some of what you're seeing now. But again, this is the industry standard. Everybody uses this software. Also, we still have it still says custom there, so make sure we hit REA to regenerate our drawing. Now our scale shows up the way it's supposed to, so that's good. Let's go and do isometric 2. So we'll kick this over here. If you don't have an isometric 2 already, which you probably don't, right-click on it, go to rename, name it correct. So I'm going to rename it. I'm going to rename this one just whatever. I'll name it 22. All right. Again, I'm just doing that so that you can kind of see that when we REA this, it'll change whatever the tab is, by the way we set this up, to that. So I'm going to rename it one more time, get it back to 2. Click out of there, REA, and now we're good. All right, so let's look at the second drawing. So here's this one here. Let's try to look for a good scale. So we'll go to 2:1 since we know it's going to be bigger and we're going to need more room than the last, which that's pretty small. Let's try 4:1. Way too big, right? So I think we got to find something in between. Let's try scale the fit and see what that, oh, sorry, that's going to be hard because we have so many drawings, so we can't just scale the fit that. There's probably a way to scale just that drawing to fit, but I don't know how to do it, so at least not this minute. So let's make a custom, and let's try 3:1. So let's go add, let's go 3:, not quotes, 3:1, and we'll make it 3 paper units to 1 drawing unit. Let's move it down, put it in between 2 and 4. Say OK. We'll go to something we know. So we'll go to 2:1. Then we'll go back to 3 to 1. See how we like to fit. And with a little bit of maneuvering, we might be able to get this to fit. So let's go back to model space and see if I can move something around. At 0.38, can I move this in a way that's going to let me... And here's another weird one too. With these annotative drawing things, when you select on it, I don't know, sometimes it just really makes the things in model space look weird. And only after they've started to show up in other places. Don't ask me why. I definitely don't know the answer. But so let's see now, after doing this, it looks better. So let's go back to ISO 2. And do we need to regenerate, or did we not do the right one? I think we did. Why don't I see it? No. So right now we are definitely having some. Let's try 3 to 1 again. See if it finds it. Let's try REA. I don't know, something to do with that annotative is now all of a sudden the only thing I can think of to do here would be to delete this viewport. So let's try that. Can't even get that viewport right this minute. Let's turn off title block, see how that goes, so I can get at my viewport. I think viewports is off right now, which is why we're having a hard time finding that. And, you know, sometimes I hate showing up your time with things like this, but some of these things are really helpful to be able to see. So I'm glad that it's working out like this. So it looks like this is in the text layer, I think. So let's turn off text. Yeah, we turn it off. Oh no, text was already off. So it's got to be one of these ones. So it must be the points layer. There it is. So our viewports layer somehow ended up in our points layer, which it really shouldn't be. We should have a layer called viewports. So let's make that real quick. We want to make sure that we can control exactly what we're trying to accomplish right now. So let's go to add VPORTS. We'll make it black. Say OK. And let's make sure this ends up in that layer. So we click on this. Right now it's in the points layer, which it should not be. Now it's in the viewports layer. So now let's click. Let's hit delete. Let's turn back on our title block. Okay, let's get ourselves in the viewports layer. Let's go VPORTS. Let's go single. Say OK. Draw it in here. Now, if you notice, when I deleted my title block, I also lost my scale. But we'll fix that after. It's my field scale there. We should be able to figure that out in a minute. So I have this here. So now if you notice, we have kind of a whole new view. So it's turn off grid. Double click inside. Turn the grid off. So, and now if you notice, as I do this, now it looks good again. That 0.38 is where we told it to be. It must have that annotative really can mess with viewports. You know, we may have been better off just making a viewport of 2.5 rather than 3 and trying to move that around. So I'll have to let you have to decide that for yourself. But let's go 3 to 1 now and see if it fits. Let's hope it does after all that. And it popped back to that weird way again. Isn't that weird? Turn that points layer off. We can see some points we don't want to see. I don't know. I couldn't tell you. So let's do it. Just because we can't figure this out for the moment, maybe I'll be able to come back in a different video and show you why that is doing what it's doing. But let's leave this and let's create a new layer. Create a new viewport. Sorry, new viewport scale. Let's go to custom. 2.5. So we're gonna go add 2.5 semicolon 1 2.5. Say okay. Let's move it down the list. So now we go 2, 2.5, 1. Say OK. Let's go to something we do know. 2 to 1. Let's go to something where we don't know. 2.5 to 1. And now that should fit. And now look, how funny is that? We change it to 2.5 to 1, and the 0.38 shows up where it's supposed to. Like I said, annotative scaling is relatively new. It's less than 10 years old, and it's something they came up with to make something easier. But it's just one of those things in life. Sometimes you make things easier, and you just make it 3 times harder. In fact, I'll do it, but technically we could just undo this, right? Make that other scale and get that the way we want it to go. But just for the heck of it, let's go back and let's add this field. So let's go to text. No, not that text, right? Def point. So let's go to title block. What layer is our things? That's in the 0 layer. Really shouldn't be, I guess, but these really should all be in the title block layer. But I don't know. For now, we'll just put it in the title block layer. So title block layer. Let's go field, FILD. enter. Then let's see if we can remember where to get it. It was in objects, object, click our object, click on our scale, choose standard scale, uppercase, say OK. Let's put it here. You can already tell it's too big, so let's change our annotation to, I don't remember which one we used. It wasn't drawing number annotated. It wasn't labels, it wasn't entries. It was date, right? Date. Then let's go enter, just like we did a million times when we made this thing. And let's go 1-8. Oh, we got to go at 1/8, comma, -3/16. Pops it right where we want it. And now we're good. So we've got 2 sheets worth of stuff. So what's going to happen from here on out is I am going to hand you either physically or most likely physically, piece of paper that has all of these dimensions. So we'll come back here, we'll dimension all of these, and then once they're all dimensioned, you're going to go through and you're going to make an ISO 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, all the way across, and then we'll talk about how to plot them to a batch, right? Make one big batch plot so it plots them all to a PDF, and then you have one big document. And that ultimately is where the end of this is. But for now, I'll let you go, and I'll be back when we're ready to print. So good luck and go to work.